Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Peterson. I am the founder, president, and CEO of Penny Forward. Penny Forward is a nonprofit organization whose purpose is to help blind people navigate the complicated landscape of personal finance through education, mentoring, and mutual support. A little bit about me. Besides being the founder and CEO of Penny Forward, I am a software developer and have been for the last 20 years. And in my personal life, I am a father of two children. I live in Minneapolis. I'm a white belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I am also a darter, a bowler, and a beep baseball player. And today we're going to talk to you about managing the personal finances of blind individuals, and specifically older blind individuals. But a lot of what we talk about here is going to apply equally well to younger people. So definitely don't tune out just because the subject is older blind individuals. But we did tailor our presentation to that. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleagues, Mo Carpenter and Liz Botner, for their introductions. Starting with Liz.
Hello, everyone. My name is Liz Botner. I am Vice President of Penny Forward. I am a certified assistive technology instructional specialist, as well as a certified vision rehab therapist. Those certifications are from the Academy for Certification of Vision Rehabilitation and Education Professionals, otherwise known as ACVREP. I also have shifted roles a little bit in my career and taken on a role in the digital accessibility space. So I have that to add to my portfolio of skill sets. Outside of my professional life, I enjoy anything active. I am a goalie for a blind ice hockey team, and I also really enjoy running both with and without my certified Guiding Eyes running guide dog. I will now turn it over to Mo.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mo Carpenter. I am a wife and mom of four. I live in central Iowa, and I'm currently working for Penny Forward and also studying, or we're all studying, and AFC candidates. So I am studying to become a financial counselor, and a lot of my free time is spent with my four children and my four fur babies. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Mo. And Mo pointed out something that I neglected to mention during my intro, but it's important to talk about here, which is that we are all studying for our accredited financial counselor certifications. So we call ourselves AFC candidates. We're working with the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education to receive our accredited financial counselor certifications, and also to make that program more accessible for blind people, with the intent of helping more blind people find their way into the financial counseling career field. So that is something that we aspire to eventually be able to train people for at Penny Forward sometime in the future. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the philosophy behind our presentation and the philosophy behind Penny Forward. Managing finances for anyone can be a very stressful thing, and for older blind individuals, you might add on additional stressors such as unexpected vision loss, maybe unexpected loss or health issues of spouses, family issues going on with adult children, grandkids, maybe losing friends, sometimes as a result of vision loss, sometimes as a result of other things going on in people's lives and health. And so we want to take that into account when we talk about managing the finances of older blind individuals. We also think a lot about what they already know how to do. Many people may be very familiar with managing their finances, and they may perceive vision loss as being a blocker to continuing doing that. So we want to be aware that the vision loss may be an issue for them and that it may in fact continue. And so it's important to give them the skills that they need in order to be able to independently live with whatever their vision stabilizes at, whether that be total blindness or some sort of low vision condition. But in the meantime, we also want to give them the techniques to continue to maintain agency or control over their finances without having to feel like they are going to give it up to somebody else. Now, on the other hand, there is some segment of the population that may not have a lot of experience with managing their finances. Perhaps their spouse did it for them and that option is no longer available. And so for them, we may want to focus more on the basics of managing finances because that may be something they've never really had to know. And even if they sort of know it from discussing it with their family and their friends, they may not have the experience that they need to feel confident with managing their finances. So we want to meet people where they are. We want to figure out exactly what it is that they already know, what it is that they need to know, and figure out how to find things that are going to help them in the short term to continue doing whatever it is that they already know how to do, while in the long term, helping them learn the blindness skills and the money management skills to maintain control over their finances for as long as they want to. So we've organized the presentation into a few different sections. First, Mo is going to talk about low-tech techniques for managing money. Then Liz is going to talk about high-tech techniques. And then we're going to talk about the importance of self-advocacy for any blind individual, but especially for older blind individuals. And then we'll follow that up with some final thoughts and describe what Penny Forward as an organization has to offer. So let's now move into low-tech techniques. I'll turn it over to Mo.
Thanks, Chris. And like Chris said, I'll be talking with you about some low-tech, and you can kind of decide to take and keep whatever of this information you want. I kind of try to cover a wide range of topics here. The first thing that I have down is to identify your money. Now, in the US, we do not currently have a paper bill system that is accessible to the blind and visually impaired. We have been told that it is in the works, but it'll still be a few years until we have any kind of identifiable bills. We do have change that is identifiable, and I guess if we have time, I can go over those kinds of differences in the different kinds of coins. But most people, to identify their bills, will use a folding system. Now there is, if you are high, low vision, you might be able to see most of our bills have a large number in one of the lower corners. That's kind of a good a way to identify those kinds of bills. But if you can't see that, one way is to use a folding technique. And of course, the system is going to vary on your particular system that you decide to go with. Another system that you can use is to use money clips, and therefore you would have different bills with different kinds of clips. You could use something as simple as paper clips. And I know Dollar Tree used to have like a pack of small, medium, large paper clips. So you could go anywhere from a small one to a large one and use your system that way for kind of a low price, easy way of monitoring what bills you have. Of course, the thing with that is paper clips do tend to kind of come off kind of easy. Another thing that you can get, and this is, you can use money identifiers. There's a lot of apps and things that gets a little more high tech. There is a little handheld tool that you can get from the Bureau of Engraving and Printing that will allow you to actually mark the different bills. I don't have one of those tools, so I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I know there's also money identifiers. And I've heard that a lot of times those get things like ones and tens confused. And so we don't really highly recommend it. But if you're in a pinch, that's a good way to kind of figure out what money that you're carrying. One thing you can do for your cards is, of course, use a braille label or some kind of sticker on the card itself to kind of mark it. The thing I do kind of hesitate in saying that is many card readers, and this is from the point of sale, you have to insert a card, and a lot of those don't really allow you to have the braille label tape and stuff on them because it might get stuck in the machine. So make sure that anything you would put on a card is stuck in that upper left hand corner, and that would be if the card is sitting horizontal with the magnet strip down, because that will be less likely to get stuck in any kind of machine. But just some way to label that. Some people just use like the first letter of the card, like C for credit card, D for debit card. And that will kind of simplify that a little so you can tell those cards. My particular cards all have different features, like my ID has my signature that I can feel on it. My credit card, I can tell where the little tap cell is, and then my insurance card is thinner. So that's how I identify those cards. I think that's it for our money identification and tools. So then we'll go to recording transactions. Easy way to record your transactions is to do it by voice with a digital recorder. I would recommend that you not actually record your credit card numbers, just because unless you are in a very private space, anyone can overhear that credit card number. And as much as we like to think that we're in safe places, we aren't always in the safest of places. So just be careful. I would recommend just saying like, went to Target, spent $12.50, that kind of thing. So you can go home and record those little details. Maybe you say put on Target card or something like that, just to keep it pretty simple. If you are, again, a low vision person, you could use the easy to see notepads. These are a memo style notepad, like your sticky notes, and they have a very high contrast edging so that you can tell where the edge of the pad is, and dark lines on them. And so that would be an easy way to take your notes and also keep them for later. And I forgot to say this earlier, is you can also put your cards into card sleeves. And that would be back to identifying your cards, because if you put it in some kind of envelope or something, it will make it so that you can basically braille that envelope or that little card sleeve so it can read anything that you need it to say, and then you just have to remember to slip it back into that particular sleeve when you are done with it. So another thing you can do is you can get braille or large print reports from your bank, and that will let you have things in a little higher accessibility. Not all banks are going to provide this, but you should at least be able to get some kind of accessible format. Otherwise, shop around. And I put down here that you could use a Perkins Brailler to braille out some of those notes, as well as you can hold in your purse or in a small bag a slate and stylus. I prefer personally the note card size, and that would be to take quick notes while you're out, so that you're, again, not putting those numbers out into the atmosphere by voice. Some banking tips is most, or if not all, banks have a phone system that you can call. Usually you can at least get your balances on your accounts, but it will depend on your particular bank on which services you can do through these. A lot will also allow like check cashing and certain other things through a phone service. Another thing you can ask your bank for or look in some low vision and OIB-TAC tool shops is for check writing guides. This is kind of an art form to find the check writing guide that fits your particular checks. So just be aware of that. Another service that the bank should be able to provide for you is checks that have tactile markings. So like the lines will be raised instead of the flat print. Now that you may have to get a manager because they might not realize that they can provide that service, but it should cost you no more than your typical checks that you would purchase from your bank. And another fun item that I have on this section is a signature guide. Not that it's actually a banking service or something, but when you are using a credit card or a debit card, often you will have to sign for things. And so you will want to make sure that you have a signature guide that someone visually can line up for you, and then you will have less hassle with trying to leave those signatures. A fun budgeting tip that I have is if you use the envelope system. This is a very good for people of low vision and blind, as you can mark the envelopes any way you see fit and be able to keep your money separate for things like your clothing budget, your food budget, any of those kinds of things. Like I said, this is just a basic quick overview. The last thing I have in my financial low-tech tools is you are able to get a credit report in Braille and large print. We think you also can get an audio file. I'm not 100% sure on that because when I tried to call the number, I wasn't able to get through that far because it did not want to identify my voice. So just a little note there. The only way to get the Braille file, though, is to call, and that would be the number 1-877-322-8228. So that is the last thing that I have on my low tech. So I'm going to pass it over to Liz for high tech. Liz?
Thank you. Thank you, Mo. And one thing before I get into high tech things, I do want to just mention that as was recommended to not use your digital recorder when you're out to record specifics about transactions. If you choose to use a money identifier, a talking money identifier, which can be successfully done with practice, sometimes depending on the particular standalone money identifier, they can be kind of finicky, but it can be done. But I also would not recommend doing that when you're out for the sole reason that, yes, the money identifier is telling you that you have a $5 bill, but the money identifier is also telling everyone else in the vicinity of the line that you're in that you have a $5 bill. So just wanted to throw that out there. So with kind of mid/high tech solutions for managing your finances, there are many different options. And the first options that I will talk about are certain types of optical devices. And before I even mention any of them, what I will say is that and optical devices are things like magnifiers, whether it's a handheld magnifier or a stand magnifier or a video magnifier or a closed circuit television, otherwise known as a CCTV. We like acronyms in the blind and low vision world. But what I will say is that before any of those options are trialed, I would strongly recommend that an assessment be done by a certified low vision professional to determine what the best option of those options is for an individual person, because everyone has different vision conditions, and even those individuals with the same visual condition still have different needs. So it is not a one-size-fits-all thing. And in fact, if things are trialed, if certain magnifiers and optical aids are trialed without being properly assessed and recommended, that actually could do more damage and frustrate you more than it otherwise would if you just had it had an assessment done beforehand. So that is what I would strongly recommend. But some of those, once devices are recommended to use, they can be very, very helpful with managing your finances. If you have enough vision to still write checks, maybe with the help of a check writing guide and maybe 2020 pens or a thicker pen, you might use something like a CCTV where you can magnify the check surface, the writing surface, and then be able to see it better, to be able to better stay within the lines and write your check on your own. Another thing that might be helpful is a stand magnifier to have your viewable area at a fixed distance from the magnifier, and then you can see what you're trying to look at easier, whether it's identifying bills or in terms of paper money, or even identifying mail that you might have in terms of mail. So magnifiers are definitely an option, and video magnifiers are another option if you're even in a store and you can have a video magnifier that you might be able to use and read the prices on items. So it's definitely worth talking about and mentioning as a possible option. Outside of magnifiers and CCTVs and things like that, another option that we all have, and a lot of us are using these days, is technology, be it smartphones or computers. With smartphones, we have many different apps at our fingertips, and banking apps are no exception. Within the realm of banking apps, you may choose to use a bank-specific app that is specific to your individual bank that you are familiar with. But there are also apps that can combine accounts that you may have in with multiple banks and combine them into one app. So you only have to open one app and you get all of your information. Examples of apps where you can have multiple accounts in one app include Mint, You Need a Budget, and Empowers Personal Capital. So those three apps, you can have a snapshot of all the different accounts that you may have. If you're not wanting to use your smartphone, or if you just are choosing not to even bother with a smartphone, because that is also a valid choice these days, you can do this on the computer, and you can log into your banking website and obtain statements and look at your transactions and things like that. Those are some higher tech options. I will now turn it back over to Chris.
Thank you, Mo, and thank you, Liz. I now want to turn to the subject of self-advocacy, because we have observed many blind individuals giving up control over certain parts of their lives, either because they don't know that they should be able to maintain that control themselves, or because it's easier. And older blind individuals are no exception, but I think we need to address the idea that many people, when they lose vision, particularly later in life, but this can also happen with congenitally blind people, feel a sense of shame or embarrassment about being blind, and they may feel like they don't have the right to ask questions, to understand things, or to even independently navigate the world. And finances can be a particularly challenging subject to talk about, because for many people it's a very private thing that causes a lot of anxiety and stress and other emotions. So we want to stress that it is important to know what's going on with your finances, even if you delegate the management of them to someone else largely. And that means that you need to feel comfortable with asking questions. If information is presented to you in a way that you don't understand, you have the right to request that it be restated or provided in a different format. And as Liz and Mo both pointed out, there are many accessible ways to access information from banks and other financial institutions. A lot of them are electronic, and the financial institution may try to direct people to electronic methods, because those electronic methods tend to be accessible. They also tend to be the easiest for the bank or the financial institution to maintain. But many banks and financial institutions do have access to Braille, and can provide you with Braille bank statements and other Braille documents. While the frontline people at the bank may not realize that that is an option, it's definitely important to self-advocate and try to not take no for an answer. Because if your bank doesn't provide that, some other bank will. For example, we just recently learned from one of our members that we spoke to at a blindness convention that Wells Fargo offers Braille debit cards and credit cards. The guy that I talked to handed me his debit card, and I could read his debit card number in Braille. And even the diversity and equity and inclusion person in charge of the disability segment at Wells Fargo was unaware of that. So some of those things do exist. They may require a little bit of research and a little bit of self-advocacy to find, but you have a right to get those things if they're helpful to you. So it is important to make sure that if you are an older blind individual yourself, know that those things do exist and that you can ask for them. And if you are working with clients who are blind individuals, it's important for you to know that too, and to be able to convey that to your clients so that they know that they don't have to turn over the management of their finances to somebody else. They can manage their finances independently, even with vision loss. That's kind of my spiel on self-advocacy, and now I kind of want to do a lightning round and turn to everybody for any final thoughts on the presentation before we go into the Q&A portion. So I will start with Mo, then she'll turn it over to Liz, and then it'll come back around to me.
Thanks, Chris. I think one of the things that I just really, really stress is be open to new ideas, because you don't know what's going to help you if you've never given it a try. So that's my key takeaway, is just kind of be open and be ready to try something new. And sometimes they can be intimidating in the beginning, but once you get a rhythm down, it tends to be something that really can make your life easier. Liz?
Sure, thanks, Mo. To the listening audience who identifies as blind rehabilitation professionals, my final thoughts for you are just remember to meet your student client where he or she is. Remember that he or she has lived experience that is completely valued and valuable, and that he or she is in the driver's seat of the level of financial independence that he or she would like to work towards. To those in the listening audience who are persons who are blind or who have low vision, you have lived experience. It absolutely does matter. And as was mentioned before, you have a right to figure out which tools are going to be helpful and the best options for you. And you also, along the same lines, have a right to be comfortable with whatever solutions and level of financial independence you would like for yourself. And you are absolutely in that driver's seat. And so, and together, you as the individual seeking the services, the blindness rehab services and blindness rehab professional that you're working with, will together go along that journey and take you from where you are to where you want to be. I will now turn it over to Chris.
Thanks, Mo and Liz. I just want to say, as we close this out, that we believe that independently being able to manage our finances as blind people is critical to maintaining successful and fulfilling and independent lives. And that doesn't necessarily mean doing everything yourself, but it does mean being aware of what's going on and being able to successfully direct the people that might be doing the day-to-day money management. There are lots of individuals that can help you with everything from personal bookkeeping all the way up through investing and financial planning. And our goal at Penny Forward is to make sure that blind people understand how to manage their finances correctly. So we talk about everything from the basics of banking and budgeting all the way up through some basic to advanced level investing, with the idea that with knowledge comes a little bit of confidence. We also encourage people to gain the experience, though. Once you've found a little bit of confidence and you feel like you have the knowledge to try something, go out and try it, gain the experience. And as we've talked about here before, older blind individuals may be sort of at an advantage here because you have some experience that may be giving you the confidence to manage your money. You may just be looking, though, for some tips and techniques to do the things that you already have experience doing with vision loss. If technology is something that you are comfortable with or something that you're interested in learning about, one of the greatest pieces of technology to come along in the last 20 years for managing finances and other things is the humble smartphone. You walk around a room full of blind people and probably 9 out of 10 of them have iPhones, and iPhones can be used for everything from recording transactions with your voice or with text, all the way up through accessing your bank accounts and even managing your investments. But as we've talked about, know that there are other resources available to you. So ask your bank what they have and then make use of what they have. One of the things that I noticed that we failed to mention up until this point was the existence of talking ATMs. ATM machines are something that many of us need to use to get cash out and even to make deposits into our banks on a regular basis. And many ATMs now do talk, especially if you have an earphone that you can carry with you. Just feel around on the front of an ATM for a little round hole that feels like an earphone jack and plug your earphone into it, and you may be able to get access even to your ATM machine. And if you don't know if that's available through your bank, ask your bank, because many banks, especially large banks, do have access to those things. Finally, I want to just briefly talk about what Penny Forward has to offer. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, Penny Forward is a nonprofit organization, and our goal is to help blind people learn to confidently manage the landscape of personal finance through education, mentoring, and mutual support. We offer a number of self-paced online courses that people can take themselves. We also offer weekly members-only Zoom chats where we get together with anyone who chooses to attend who's a member of Penny Forward and talk about a financial topic. And those topics really range from anything from basic banking all the way up through retirement planning. Right now, we're focusing on job searches and really anything having to do with making, managing, or growing money is within the scope of our organization. We envision a world where blind people have the tools to manage their finances, and they also have the finances that they need to independently maintain the lives that they want. And so we're doing that through direct outreach to consumers, but we also offer services to agencies, particularly speaking engagements like this, but we can also offer group and one-on-one classes to your students. If you would like to learn more about that, go and visit our website at pennyforward.com and browse through there. But if something isn't showing up there, we may do it anyway, and it may just not have made it to the website. So feel free to send us an email at pennyforward@pennyforward.com or give us a phone call at 888-332-5558. And I'll give those out one more time, pennyforward@pennyforward.com. And the phone number is 888-332-5558. Thanks for listening to our presentation, and now we'll open it up to you for your questions.